Thank you very much. I'm going to start with a couple of very horrible slides. If everybody in this audience was to die 100 years ago, see what I mean by some horrible slides? That was, if you were to die, in all likelihood, you would have died of an infectious disease. So a bug you picked up somewhere, tuberculosis or something like that. Today, if you were to die, I'm keeping on with a horrible theme. If you were to die, in all likelihood, it would have been from something that is related to your health and your lifestyles. What you eat, if you exercise or not, where do you live? The world is changing. In fact, premature deaths, 60% of them have to do with the environment, with your behaviors, with all the types of things where only 40% is your genetics and healthcare. Think about that. And in fact, 96% of our collective resources, so every one of our tax dollars, 96% go to the back end of the healthcare system. At the end of this pattern and continuum of care, we're only spending 4% on that 60% that matters most. My hope is that little smoker down there in the corner. Part of the reason is because with smoking, we have actually been able to link a behavior to policy, to resources, to reorienting the ways in which we do things. And think about it. The next one on that front is certainly sedentary behaviors. I'm sure many of you are trying to build bike lanes, are trying to get kids to exercise more, are trying to do all the kinds of things that are getting people to have active lifestyles. But really, and frankly, we're only scratching the surface on health and well-being. Think of mental health. Think of social well-being. Think of all the social networks that really enhance each and every one of your health and well-being. So as an organization, and Jim and Marion and Ty and Jill, there's a number of us out there, this is what we decided we wanted to be. We wanted to orient everything we do around the concept of enhancing health and well-being. However, we realized that we were too small to really understand the full scope of what that meant. So that's where we teamed up with the Conference Board of Canada and CERES, the Centre for Research on Disabilities, which is based here in Quebec, and a number of different organizations to conduct some serious research. It was several years, 3,000 pieces of literature, and in fact, I know that we talked to many of you here because we talked to elected officials and municipal officials and city staff, but also developers and communities to really try and understand how we could link the way in which we plan our cities and build our environments to really deliver a broad concept of health and well-being. And we discovered there was a huge gap. If you're a chief medical officer, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of knowledge. But if you're a counselor, if you're a community member, if you're an architect, if you're a park builder, there's a huge gap in understanding what we can do. There's also a huge gap in terms of scales. If you're looking at the whole country or at a province, there's a lot of statistics. There's very little at the scale of a building, of a site. So we started by developing a definition, and I'll point at it by highlighting the word political in there, which means that the voices around the table matter. Who participates in that process matters. And so we had a definition, we had a series of domains. The next step was really to understand the indicators and the metrics that would allow us to bring some evidence and bring some knowledge into this conversation. And really it is a conversation. It's a conversation around the social domain. What makes a welcoming environment? How are we creating support systems? How we create great spaces for socialization? How do we create environments that bring delight and enjoyment? How do we enhance the natural systems? How do we focus on mobility and the resilience of communities? How do we create an environment that is really focused on affordability and all the affordability of the lifestyles, but creating complete communities and thinking about the full life cycle and enhancing the local economy? How do we really bring a cultural dimension into our cities and our towns and our communities that create access to the culture that each one of us thrives upon, building a strong sense of belonging and introducing, again, play and learning into our environments? And ultimately, how do we bring a political, a conversational approach to this decision-making process? Having an integrated process where all the voices participate, where it's collaborative, where we're truly building a sense of ownership and stewardship. So many of you, and I know there's folks from different municipalities who have started to work on this. This is the city of Ottawa, where you see the local councillor presenting health and well-being. In Vancouver, in the city of Niagara, and I love this one in Toronto. They decided to print a massive version and have a conversation to this effect. In the town of Maple Ridge, in BC, in Kingston, there's been an incredible amount of conversations that have really started to change the topic. And if you think about it, the province can build hospitals to the nth degree. Municipalities, communities can keep people out of hospitals. Yours is the opportunity to work health and well-being upstream. And this is an incredible piece of research that is Canada-based and is now being exported to other countries. And frankly, every one of you has the opportunity, and because I know that many of you have already shown incredible leadership in understanding and bringing a decision into the decision-making process and into the conversations that are happening in communities, in the design of parks, in the design of streets, in the construction of community centers, a real focus on what can meaningfully improve the well-being of those communities. Thank you very much.